everyone, and welcome to the Doc's Huddle, your gateway to an in-depth connection between sports medicine and the latest events in sports, fantasy, and betting. Today's show is brought to you by the Health and Wellness Depot. Unlock the power of well-being. I'm Dr. Mikey B. With me, as always, CJ and Dr. MJB, the legend. What's going on, boys?
What up?
Not
going on,
much.
Mike?
Just to jump into today. Yeah, I know we wanted to focus on specific injuries, so we were going to jump into Achilles tears, focusing on some of the quarterbacks not recently, but last season in the NFL. Before we dive too in depth, I'll just drop some names out there. We are going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins, but if you guys want to just give an overview, dive into what an Achilles injury is and just some basics before we dive into anything specific.
MJB, I'll let you start.
Yeah. So pretty much in the human body, for anyone who's going to be performing any, athletic movements or involved in any sports, you have something called the gastrosoleus complex that is extremely important in allowing you to propel yourself up into the air. So as you can see here on the image on the screen, you have the gastrosoleus complex that attaches to the Achilles tendon at the bottom, and that Achilles tendon attaches to your heel. So the reason that's important is because it's going to allow athletes, whether they're jumping, sprinting, performing lateral movements, to propel, pushing off of their foot. And that muscle generates a lot of force. So having it injured won't allow you to do such movements. And there's usually a timetable when trying to return from injuries like this after having a repair done. So I'll let Mike dive a little bit into that, and then we'll kind of piggyback off of that.
Yeah, so there's certain injuries that you can kind of play through, certain injuries that it might hinder your performance, and we're talking tears or sprains or things of that nature. This is certainly not one of them. You can't walk normal without your Achilles fully intact. The thing about this complex is that you have two muscles in the gastrocnemius and the soleus that they are going to do things like what Mike said and help you jump, propel, run, but they're also going to help in staying upright in posture. So every time we lean and put weight on our forefoot, meaning the front of the foot by the toes, they turn on automatically and they pull and create tension through your Achilles tendon to keep you upright. If that's not intact, that particular leg can't do that. And, you can imagine when you're playing a sport, how important that might be, not only to propel yourself, but to be able to put on the brakes and then change direction. One that we're going to review today with the quarterbacks. I mean, every single drop back, right? We're pushing off of our forefoot, meaning the ball of your foot. That is tension through the Achilles and creating power through that complex every single step of the way. And then needing to plant on that back foot to then shift our weight going forward when wanting to step up in the pocket and throw the football. Something that guys like Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins do extremely well. And, but even if they sucked at it, they wouldn't be able to suck at it either without the Achilles. So, that's just one of those things that's really important.
Yeah, just for all the viewers, just in case nobody's familiar with, when we're referring to a drop back, that's when the play's starting, quarterback's getting the football, and he's doing what's known as a three-step drop or five-step drop, just going backwards and putting all that pressure on that muscle and tendon.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the really exciting thing about the Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers is that, they're coming back off these surgeries. We're going to just get into both of the types that they had today. And both are coming into scenarios where they're going to be paid lots of money. And both cities are expecting them to do very, very well, like extremely well. And literally their franchises are riding on it, despite Michael Penix getting drafted 8th overall. Despite that, so, and it's pretty cool that just today, Aaron Rodgers even spoke about that, which we'll share with you guys.
Awesome, great.
There's pressure on all of us.
All of us, yeah.
Why do you say there's pressure on you?
Well, I think if I don't do what I know I'm capable of doing, then we're all probably going to be out of here. So I like that kind of pressure, though. I know there's, it's a tough market to play in. It's not for everybody. I relish that opportunity, and that's the way the NFL is. I'm not saying anything monumental as you guys are typing away and putting your tweets out. This is how it is every single year. You might not just say it, but as you get older in the league, if you don't perform, they're going to get rid of you or bring in the next guy to take over. I mean, it happened in Green Bay. So, and I'm, a few years older than I was back then. So I expect to play at a high level. I expect us to be productive and competitive and all that stuff to take care of itself.
There's pressure on.
So we agree, Aaron. we expect the same out of you. And we're going to explain a little bit more on that today. Why?
Yeah, and so, just to jump right in here, since we brought up Aaron Rodgers, I would like to go over last season. The Jets were optimists that, maybe if they had played better early on in the season, got further to take a chance at the playoffs, maybe he would have been able to come back earlier than some expected. I know Kirk Cousins' timeline, they were trying to get if that's going to be similar or not. And, interesting enough, Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old, Kirk Cousins 35. Even though Aaron Rodgers has, he's a little bit older, doctors and fans were expecting him to hopefully come back sooner. Can you shed some light on what his procedure was and why would that differ from maybe somebody else's Achilles tear?
You want to start on that, Mike?
Yeah, I'll say first and foremost, before we even dive deeper into the actual procedures, all of this was just based on Aaron Rodgers' age. Okay, so even before getting to the medical portion of it, he doesn't have a lot of time left. They were trying to, I think, the team, doctors, they were all put in kind of weird positions because it's like, can we afford to give this guy a full year to recover, right? Knowing that he's already 40, it's like, well, how many more years he's going to play, right? And especially for the Jets, you went out, you sold out everything to get him. You're committed to him now. You built your roster that way. So I think they went their approach, and this was the surgery that Aaron Rodgers ended up having was the speed bridge Achilles tendon repair. And the reason this surgery differs from any typical Achilles tendon repair is that they create anchors and draw small holes into the calcaneus bone, right? The back of the heel bone there, as you can see. And they create anchors from not only the suture that was already made to repair the tendon, but down to the calcaneus bone to help create more of a fixation for him. And this would help to give him more force when he returns, to kind of expedite the process, allow him to have more of that, plantar flexion movement that we're looking for when patients are returning from Achilles surgery. So the time frame would have been, in essence, shorter because he had that extra anchor to be there and provide him support. But again, you can't count science, right? Tissue still has to kind of heal the same way. Aaron Rodgers is older in age. So there's a lot of factors to take into consideration. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. When I first heard the news, I just thought it was a bit much when people are like, yeah, you can come back sooner. I was like, as a physical therapist, we got to remember what the science is like. And once he starts to think that we're smarter than the science that's, been here for so long, that's when we can kind of get in trouble. So I'm curious to see what you guys think.
Yeah, I completely agree. Listen, I was rooting for him because I love to see how science evolves, right? And in this particular surgery, by them doing this figure 8 suture, you're covering a lot more surface area. It's going to really help improve that compression, improving that stability that you had mentioned, allowing you to do things earlier in the rehab process, right? So when you have a traditional Achilles repair, the ability to maybe weight bear after surgery, or start taking the patient into a neutral position, which is where the foot is basically in neutral. It's like an L, versus if it's in the more dorsiflex position, which would then be in the position as if you were stretching your calves and that Achilles, where we have to avoid those positions for a lot longer when there's more of a singular type of stitch or screw versus this newer speed bridge procedure. So I understand why it sounds like, yes, we will get the patient moving quicker, do more things earlier on in the rehab setting. The thing is, and everyone that listens to this show is going to hear me say this over and over and over again. The healing of the tissue and where the surgical limb is in relation to returning to sport are two different things. So, like you said, Mike, like, yes, he's able to, and maybe not, maybe he's going to heal slower because of his age, maybe, but say he was able to heal a little bit faster because they were able to get him moving earlier in the rehab process. We don't know how long it's going to take for his calf to be able to begin to generate more power, be able to do the things that it needs to do. We don't know. We don't get to see that, right? When he was on the field, they had him in all different types of sneakers to be able to prevent too much tension going through that system. When he was throwing on the field on the sideline, he was throwing flat-footed, right? Or he was moving back. Like, it wasn't until like the final weeks where he was able to do a very gentle back pedal with all these other precautions that were still in place for him. So, I think that I'm very excited about this procedure. I think that a lot of people are going to have benefit, and I think that it's going to make for a much more comfortable rehab. I think it's going to make for an easier rehab because we can do things earlier on, so the ankle's not going to get as stiff, and we don't have to push patients as hard. But I don't know if that's necessarily going to tell us, hey, they're going to return back to the field much sooner. It hasn't been out long enough for us to even say so.
Yeah. And Mike, to piggyback off of that, if the procedure does it's relatively new. So if it does show, if it's done on a bunch of athletes and we start to see that there is a trend where, okay, athletes are able to participate in, different pretty much protocols at different sets of times, right? If they're early on, if they're more in the acute phase, are they able to get to the mid phase of their rehab protocol a lot faster? That's all fine and gravy. But we have to understand too that it's still going to take time, right? And even if he was to return at some point, if he was to return last year, what are his long-term effects?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that we won't know until a lot of research is done. So it looks cool. It's definitely going to be something, a leg up within the medical field, right? Like, especially for you and I being physical therapists. So that will help us in the long run if this is a procedure that continues to develop and we can use it on different athletes. But at the same time, it still takes time. There's plenty of athletes, history has shown, have tried to shorten that recovery time frame, gotten back on the field, and what happens? They have shorter careers.
Yeah.
Not a similar surgery as a speed bridge, but Cam Akers, for one, he isn't a quarterback, but he rushed that process, got back on the field, looked great. Everyone thought he was great. He had terrible year to follow that, and we never seen him since. So we just don't want to repeat of that. So I'm just like, let's put caution to the wind before saying,
it's interesting to hear from like an outside perspective to learn about the amount of pressure that's going to be put on that and force that's going to be put on that heel. And the reason why I think that's interesting is because maybe from a rushed perspective to get him back is only because maybe he's a pocket passer, right? He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not going to be scrambling. Well, I'm not saying I'm a fan of that. I'm just saying maybe that's their mindset if they were making a run for the Super Bowl.
So I hear what you're saying, but that's a great point for me to actually educate everyone on how, even if you're a pocket passer, no different. And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to actually I'm going to bring Kirk Cousins' injury in here. Even though they had two different surgeries, they still tore their Achilles. And the mechanism of injury, meaning how he tore his Achilles, is on his drop back as a pocket passer. And I think that that's something that you could really see how that kind of transpired. So here, as he's dropping back,
Take a look at what happened to Kirk Cousins moments
boom,
ago.
right there, you see
There
him
was a
kick up that right leg.
non-contact.
Mhm.
When he plants that right foot back down, boom, you see it snap right there.
Yeah.
And all that
And then
was,
there's the issue.
and that's going back to that conversation that we were having just a little bit earlier, how on that drop back, not only are we producing the force that we're going to see where you're jumping or sprinting, but when you're dropping back and you plant that foot in the ground, that's something that needs to be addressed in the rehab setting too, because that puts an unbelievable amount of tension through the calf and the Achilles. And because it needs to absorb that load, that force, and then you need to be able to propel yourself forward. And his obviously didn't at that moment in time, and it tore. Aaron Rodgers, very similar. He had a guy coming down on him, right? And then it wasn't as easy to see in the highlights, but that's a similar mechanism. You know?
Yeah, no, that's good. Great to shed light on that, because that helps us get a full picture of, not even just being a scrambler. It affects you in a different way, but it's going to affect you a lot. So that's good. Very helpful.
Yeah.
And so going back to the speed bridge, something that we didn't mention, notice where it's being done. It's being sutured where the Achilles attaches. So this is something that is only going to be able to be done if that is where, at least to my knowledge, right? Like if newer science comes out and they're able to do this elsewhere, that's different. But you can see where the sutures are. They're not just through the tendon, but through the bone, right? The heel, the calcaneus bone, to reattach it to where it inserts on that bone. This is why Kirk Cousins was not able to get this particular procedure, because that's not where his tear was. So we assume it was higher up along the tendon. Not all that information is disclosed to us, but and therefore that type of procedure just isn't warranted. So that's why he didn't receive that same exact surgery.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely clears it up why his timeline was expected to be longer than Aaron Rodgers last season after, injuring it, and the hype of Aaron Rodgers maybe coming back earlier and whatnot. And Kirk Cousins, I don't really think that was a thought for him, and that explains it, because his tear was higher up versus lower towards the heel.
Yeah.
Right. Because you got to consider, one, we already mentioned that you do need time to recover. So I think allowing Aaron Rodgers the full year, right? I think he injured his Achilles and had to have it repaired after the opener, and that was last September. So allowing him to go through the entire process, even though you are using a different technique, is only going to benefit the Jets, right? If they would have tried to put a rush product out there, it probably wouldn't have suited the team best. And and during the season, it's a long season, man. There's no reason to rush that process when you have 17 games, and if they do make playoffs, even more than that. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I'd rather, let's be safe about it. Let's approach it the right way. And I mean, they've done everything now to try to protect him once he does recover from the surgery. So I'm curious to see, as OTAs go along, training camp goes along, how he's faring in there. One thing people aren't mentioning too is you can practice till you turn blue. When game day comes on and lights come on, it's a whole different scenario, right? Because you're working that much harder to try to win on that play, score that game-winning touchdown. You can simulate as much as you want in practice, but it does not replicate the same in the game when you're actually trying to win this game, right? So why even force him into a situation like that?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, Aaron Rodgers, again, older, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. He can sling the ball. He's a great quarterback. So you give him an opportunity this year coming up. Hopefully their O-line's improved, and hopefully he can do the job that they really wanted last year.
That brings me to my question now, right? So, one, is the Achilles going to hold up? And two, is he, like, we'll talk about A-Rod first, then we can go to Kirk. And two, is he going to play well with the Jets? Are the Jets going to be a good team? What are we thinking about in that whole entire facet?
I'll let MJB
I think
start that one.
Yeah, I think I think in Aaron Rodgers' sake, by the time he starts the year, it'll be a year removed from when he tore it. Um, I think he'll be more suited to maybe gear up week one. I'm curious to see how he fares in the preseason. That'll tell us a lot. Um, Kirk Cousins, when was his injury? I don't remember when he had his injury.
I think it was November. Chris, can you get us a date on that? I think it was in November.
Yeah, for him, I doubt that he'd be ready to start the season.
Yeah, November 1st was his surgery
November
date.
1st. Oh,
Yeah,
surgery. Okay,
I
so he
doubt
tore it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I highly doubt that he'll start the season. But hey, that's why they went and got Michael Penix.
Could you imagine Penix starts?
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I don't think it's gonna happen either.
Oh,
but could you?
why don't you think it's gonna happen?
I think September. You're looking at 10 months. In that case, I think is he gonna be great? No, maybe. I don't know. It depends on how the rehab is going, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible.
I'm not paying a guy 4-year, 100+. I need him to be ready.
That's
Yeah,
what
no,
I'm saying.
but I'm saying I think it could
if
happen.
they sign him to the deal this offseason, the mindset would be to me that they're expecting him to be ready before they're giving him that deal. I can't imagine that he's not ready for week one.
Yeah, I think he's going to be not doing much all off season or mini camp or training camp or any, but like I think it's one of those. He's got like 30 red shirts on, so everyone knows don't come within like 10 feet of him and let him just sit there and try to get acclimated throwing the ball to some of these guys this summer, and then come September just let him go. I think
well, that's the part that scares me.
well, yeah. So I agree. So okay. So this is good. So let's go back to Aaron Rodgers because that's what I was. I think for Aaron Rodgers, I think his Achilles is gonna be perfect. I think that there's gonna be absolutely no problem whatsoever. Does that mean that he's gonna play well and the Jets are gonna play well? I don't know. No idea because that whole that was a massive question mark with him healthy.
Yeah.
Now we're coming back. Yes, I think he's going to be the same exact product going into this year. We don't know, and he's healthy now. I do believe that he's going to be in better shape. Like I think that the amount of work that had to go into getting him to this position, if he rehabbed anyway the way I rehab my athletes, he's going into this offseason in better shape than he went into last season.
Yeah.
Period. So in regards to what that Achilles can do, I think he'll be okay, especially because you said he's a year removed. But man, I agree, Chris. I mean, them going offensive line first round is promising. They're thinking about it. Like we got to keep him upright because you don't want to rely on him having to run for his life.
Yeah, I mean, they also signed a 1-year deal with Tyron Smith, who's, he's older, but I mean, he's still.
Bro, he hasn't played a full season in years. The guy can't stay healthy.
That is true.
He lost his job. He lost his job in Dallas because he couldn't stay healthy.
So I have a question for you, Mike, and this is in regards to Kirk Cousins. The reason I bring that up is his past medical history, and I don't know if you can pull that up for us, CJ, at some point, but I know it's extensive. How much of that would factor into his recovery and his potential start date at the beginning of the season? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't disagree. I wish that we were able to see some of what his you know what I mean? Like
that'd be very telling.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's only so much information that we have at our disposal because of HIPAA laws and things of that nature. But you bring up a good point. I think he's going to be able to perform well. I think the two of them, right? It's not like they're Odell Beckham, where they rely
for
on
sure.
they rely on creating separation, right? Can they produce enough power to move around in the pocket, and they make their plays with this, right? They need a formidable athletic capability to do what they do, but this is what's going to keep them. That's why they're still playing at the age that they're playing, right? That's why Tom Brady got better as he got older in the league for a long period of time. So I think at the position, I really think that I will be disappointed in both of them if they cannot, because they
Makes sense.
have everything at the and if they can't, then they should have come and seen one of us.
I mean, it's exactly 11 months, September 1st, from the day Kirk Cousins got his surgery. So maybe he plays in a
Oh, it
preseason
was
game.
it was
Maybe
in
he doesn't.
September. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
No.
In November.
November. The beginning.
November.
November 1st.
Okay.
If you're
November 1st.
including
Yeah.
November 1st. So, maybe he's fit for preseason. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But, see how that plays out. I just, based on the timelines that I've heard, it sounds like he should be good to go at 11 months.
Oh, and I don't doubt that. That's accurate what you're saying. I just if you can play that video for us again, Mike, Kirk Cousins
You want
dropping
Kirk?
back in the pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. No problem. Give me one moment. Okay.
I think for me, Chris, my biggest thing is it's not the timeline in terms of when he should be recovered by. It's more of his past medical history, when his surgery was, and then
For Kirk Cousins moments ago. It was a non-contact injury.
and the body mechanics, man. What is that?
Yeah, right there. You just see it.
Time, and then
You just see it go,
there's the
man.
issue. Right now, he's limping over to the sideline. Really hope that he's okay.
Yeah. And I'm gonna play it one more time. Like,
Take a look at what
just
happened
you can
to Kirk
see, like,
Cousins
right there.
moments
Boom.
ago.
And
It was a
I'm gonna do that one more time.
Cousins
Boom.
moments ago.
It's hard to see it,
It
but
was a
Moments
there.
ago.
So if you can see, his heel is actually touching the ground.
Yeah.
That heel should never be touching the ground on a drop back. Why? Because they're planting the ball of foot into the ground, and then they're being able to spring and propel forward. That's something that we're going to work on a lot in the rehab setting, so that way we can improve the resilience of that tendon, so that way it can become more elastic, right? It can spring back, and so he can move forward. It literally snaps, and then you see the heel drop there.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to pull that up, Mike?
Oh, because I was seeing his body mechanics when dropping back. I just wasn't a fan of, and I'm like, yeah, some things would just have to be cleaned up prior to him returning. Because I mean, based on everything you're saying and the shoe wear, right, that these players are wearing, your body mechanics are going to matter. So I don't know if he puts himself in harm's way by continuing to have that same form, if he makes some changes to help prevent that in the future. But we'll see. I mean, it's not far-fetched to think that he can start the season. I just want to see what, again, OTAs, training camp, preseason, how involved he is. And at that point, we'll know more, right? Because like you said, we're not at the facility. We don't see them practicing. We don't know where they are in terms of their rehab. So we just have to go based off face value and based off what they're willing to show to the public. And from there, we can kind of assess and be like, okay, based on how he's moving here, how he's moving there, I can see that potentially week 1 he'll be ready to start.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think too, things that, and this is my bias, right? Like, obviously, and I'm sure you're going to share the same bias as me, but when you have these guys trying to get back to the field of play, like, there's certain parameters that we need to see them reach and be able to replicate in the clinic. So, when we're thinking, oh, they just have to drop back and do those things, like, in order for him to do that at that speed in an open environment, right? That's not a controlled environment. He's literally surviving in chaos, running for his life. Like, he needs to be able to do single leg hopping without that heel ever collapsing and touching the ground repetitively over time for distance and for height as just one of the many parameters that we would put him through. And just to give everyone an idea, like, that is extremely difficult. Because as soon as you come down on that foot, think about it. He's not doing a single leg hop there. He was just backpedaling, and then he put the foot down, and the heel then touched the ground and collapsed. So to be able to do that and repetitively get off of the ground, it takes a lot of time. So I can understand why you're so reserved on his return, because it sounds like it's not as bad as it is. Like, oh, well, you just got to start hopping. No, like, you literally are putting so more tension through the tendon than he did right there, which caused the injury.
Right.
And then he's going to need to be able to do that repetitively over and over again safely before we can even think about putting him back out onto the field. So I totally get where you're coming from. I'm hoping that he's able to do it. I think within the timeline and everything based off the position, like I said, he doesn't make his living off of creating separation where he needs burst, like at the level of an Odell Beckham did when he's creating separation, or does. He's still in Miami, but
Right.
You know what I mean?
But that's what I was alluding to. If I'm the Atlanta Falcons, right, and I'm management, I'm the coaching staff, I'm watching this video over and over again. He's literally backpedaling in the pocket, and there's not a defender in his face. Like, he's not trying to avoid a sack at that moment. You know what I mean? Like, he's just literally backing up when it happens. That's just like poor mechanics to me.
Well,
I so like, how much of that, if you want to replay it again, we can look at it. But
to me, it looks like the edge got here. I'll play it again. It looks like the edge got kicked out, and he's trying to make a play and actually run. So I think his push off of that leg is a lot more violent than it would normally be because he's trying to sprint through that hole. You know what I'm saying? So if you watch, the tackle is going to kick out the edge, and I think he's just trying to run through there, and it just didn't happen.
Injury. Looks like
yeah, but even prior to the injury, right?
He pumps one time, and then there's the issue. Right now, he's limping over.
Say that again?
Oh, I was saying prior to the injury, like, that's the reason the injury happened for sure, with the defender being there. But I'm saying even prior to even getting to that, I just don't like his form during his drop back. And does that make him susceptible to having a re-tear if he continues to have the same drop back?
Interesting point.
Is what I'm saying. Yeah,
it's a very interesting point. I mean, and I'm very interested to know if they're even looking at that. I doubt it.
I doubt it too.
I doubt it, because I don't think that as much as you would think at the professional level that there's that type of communication between the medical personnel and, say, the quarterback coach, like, maybe, but I don't know if there's enough knowledge from the quarterback coach to be like, is putting too much strain on the tendon, or does their medical staff have the thought process to say, hey, and it's one of those things like we need to make sure that he's able to change what he's doing. It's very interesting, right? Like, then you got to worry about, am I stepping on toes? Now I'm telling a quarterback coach how to do his job as the medical professional, right? Like, because they should know a lot more about how to throw a football and coach these guys than you or I. But at the same time, we live and breathe body mechanics and what's going to be the optimal position to produce force and reduce aberrant strain on tissue, right? So,
right,
you bring up a real good point.
Yeah, and let me just. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Last thing I was gonna say, and Kirk is a very, very intelligent guy. Like we got to see some of him in Quarterback, that Netflix series, and following Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. These guys, I feel like, are the type of individuals that are going to go the extra mile to ask these types of questions and bring in as many people as they need to find out that answer. But I don't believe that that's going to be the case with every single person that at the next level, not even close.
Right.
But at these two individuals, the Tom Brady like-minded people where they're doing everything they can to optimize their body for performance, I would put the onus on both Aaron and Kirk. And if that does occur, I think it's because of the two of them, not because of their, the team or medical personnel.
Right.
I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but either way, as long as it's taken care of. What are you gonna say, Chris?
No, I was going to jump in here. Had a comment from Linda. Basically says that she thinks Kirk Cousins is going to go ready to go week 1, and what you basically mentioned, his mental focus and pretty much drive to get him back to where he needs to be. And I already know my point, but reiterating, I would be surprised if he wasn't ready for week 1. So I think he should be good to go. Aaron Rodgers should be good to go, and hopefully they both have a great season.
Yeah, I totally agree. You think the Falcons are going to look good?
Well, as a team, that's another story, but I think so. I mean, they have
How about do you think the Falcons' offense is going to look good? Forget about the defense. We know that the defense is beyond suspect.
I mean, their O-line's supposed to be pretty good, right?
Great.
They've got some playmakers.
Their O-line's great.
Hopefully, Kyle Pitts we'll see a lot more from him with Kirk Cousins. And they've got a lot of playmakers. I think they're going to be good. They just got to put it together.
Dimitri saying that Kyle Pitts is going to be receiving for 1,000 yards. Bro, I don't know.
I'm ready to see it.
They got a lot of
I've
weapons.
been in fantasy the last few years, and he's been killing me.
I will say this, though, to Dimitri's point. Listen, Kirk knows how to get the ball to a tight end. He did really, really well. Really well throwing the ball to Hawkinson when they got him from Detroit. I don't see why. Let's put it this way. If Kyle Pitts is who we hoped he is, or who, coming out of college, I think he can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
You agree? Yeah. So I think so.
I'm hoping he has a breakout season because he was a stud coming out of college. So
yeah, the Panthers fan hoping for Falcon success.
Individual success. You can stab 1,000 yards and have a bad season. Rooting for it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's all I have on these guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to transpire. I mean, we might be revisiting this topic as we get closer to the regular season, as we're going through training camp and getting to see if they get to take the field and whatnot. But I do think that they're going to have some success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, on that note, I want to remind everyone that today's show is brought to you by the Health and Wellness Depot. Unlock the power of well-being. We want to thank everyone for tuning in today. For CJ, Dr. MJB, I'm Dr. Mikey B. Until next time, later.
Thanks for dropping in.